Today I am making beef tallow and coconut milk soap. I am showing you why beef tallow works and what's the chemistry behind all of our ingredients. Then I'm gonna show you how to work safely with coconut milk, and then we're gonna walk through the whole recipe in detail, hands-on. Let's get started. For this recipe I am using grass-fed beef tallow that is already rendered. We're gonna use 40% tallow, 25% coconut oil, 30% olive oil, and 5% castor oil. So let's start with the chemistry behind the ingredients we use. Why we use beef tallow, why we use coconut oil, why we use olive oil, and why we use castor oil. So we have 4 different main categories in oil selection. We have oils that offer conditioning properties, we have oils that offer cleansing properties, we have oils that offer creaminess and structure to your lather, and then we have oils that offer richness to your lather. So if we take a look at all of the categories, category number 1 is conditioning oils, and those are the ones that have high oleic and also linoleic acid. Now let's look at olive oil. Olive oil has around 55 to 83% oleic acid, and this is exactly what adds conditioning properties to our lather, because oleic acid reacts with sodium hydroxide and it produces sodium oleate that gives conditioning and gentle lather. It has a low concentration of linoleic acid. Linoleic acid is the main reason of dreaded orange spots. It's an acid that is very prone to oxidation. So when you buy an oil that has a high concentration of linoleic acid, then you have a higher chance of getting these dreaded orange spots here that look like that. The next category is cleansing oils, and here we use coconut oil. Coconut oil is very high in lauric and myristic acid. When lauric and myristic acid react with sodium hydroxide, they produce sodium laurate and sodium myristate. And then we have creaminess and hardness, and this is perhaps the most important category of this video. These are butters that basically are high in stearic and palmitic acid and a bit of oleic acid. And this is exactly what we're doing with beef tallow. Beef tallow is basically a substance that has oleic, palmitic, and stearic acid. It's very cheap because it's considered a byproduct. It leads to a very long-lasting creamy bar. Stearic and palmitic acid, when they react with sodium hydroxide, they produce sodium stearate and sodium palmate. And those are substances that create a very creamy lather. And then we have the 4th category, which is basically what adds lather boost. And there we have castor oil, which is high in ricinoleic acid, and castor oil basically adds richness and thickness to your lather. If you want a free soap making recipe that contains oils from all of these 4 categories, conditioning, cleansing, creamy, and richness, then comment "I want this recipe" and I will send to you as soon as I see your comment. So why are we using coconut milk in this recipe? Coconut milk is fantastic at adding this silky lather. The way we're gonna work with coconut milk today is that we are going to replace our lye water with coconut milk. If you're completely new to soap making, basically we have our oils and our lye, and that's how we create soap. And lye is basically sodium hydroxide, is the substance that converts oils into soap. In order to mix oils and lye together, we have to dissolve the lye, which is a powder, into water. And this time, instead of dissolving it in water, we're gonna dissolve it in coconut milk. Of course, there are quite a few dangers when working with milks or juices, and this is mainly on the fact that coconut milk and other milks, they contain a lot of sugars, and sugars tend to overheat both our lye solution and also afterwards our soap butter. So also milks contain a lot of amino acids, and when amino acids and sugars react together in a very high temperature environment like the one we have when we make our lye solution, then it leads to the so-called Maillard reaction, which makes the milk completely brown, kind of like bread. It's the same reactions that turn bread from white flour into a brown, basically, color, because we have amino acids and sugars that react together under high temperatures and create this color and this flavor. So if you're not careful, you will get both overheating and also this brown color where your coconut milk will look completely brown and your soap will turn completely brown, and it's not very aesthetically pleasing. So what we are going to do is that we're going to freeze our coconut milk. Let's go ahead and measure our recipe. For measuring a recipe, we're going to use the soap calculator. I like to use soapcalc.net, but you can use whatever you want. So type of lye, we're going to use sodium hydroxide because we're making solid soap. If we were making liquid soap, we would use potassium hydroxide. Grams of weight of oils, I'm using grams because I live in Europe, and I'm using 1,000 grams of oils. And then in the water, we're gonna use lye concentration, and we're gonna use 33%, meaning 33% of our lye solution is gonna be lye and 67% is gonna be water. This is a standard lye concentration. Then for superfat, we're gonna use 5%, meaning 5% of our oils and butters are going to be intentionally unreacted, so they're not gonna react with sodium hydroxide. They're just gonna be added as raw oils and butters to add some extra moisturizing properties to our lather. Then we have fragrance, which is gonna be 40 grams per kilo of oil, so we're gonna add a total of 40 grams. And then we will have our oils and butters. So you can go here, basically choose all the butters you want, and then you click the plus button to add them here. So we're using 40% tallow, 25% coconut oil, 5% castor oil, and 30% olive oil. Then we click view recipe summary, and here you have all the information you need. You have how much water you need to add, 289 grams, or coconut milk, how much sodium hydroxide you need to add, and how much oils you need to add. And then it also gives you an indication of how your soap will look like. With that being said, let's go ahead and measure our sodium hydroxide, and then let's add it in the frozen coconut milk. The first thing we're gonna do is wear protective gear, which is gloves and goggles. Then we're gonna make sure that we're in a well-ventilated area. And then the third rule is that you always add your lye in water or in milk, never the other way around. Because if you do the other way around, it will be a highly exothermic reaction, and there is a high risk of basically lye solution splashing everywhere. I'm gonna measure 142 grams of sodium hydroxide, just like our recipe told us to. And now I'm going to add 289 grams of coconut milk, and it's gonna be frozen coconut milk. Now we have 289 grams of coconut milk, frozen coconut milk, and I'm gonna go ahead and add the sodium hydroxide. This is the safest way to add sodium hydroxide in your solution. Whether you're working with milks or with water, the safest way is to freeze it first. In the meantime, I'm gonna measure 400 grams of beef tallow, 250 grams of coconut oil, so that we melt it over a double boiler. Coconut oil and beef tallow are melted. Let's go ahead and add our liquid oils, which is olive oil and castor oil. So we're gonna go ahead and add 300 grams of olive oil. And then we're gonna go ahead with 50 grams of castor oil. So now we want our oils and lye solution to cool down. We want to work at low similar temperatures at around 29-30 degrees Celsius. If we work at higher temperatures, we have a higher risk of trace acceleration, meaning the effect where your soap solidifies so fast that you don't have time to pour it into the mold. And this can happen in recipes where we have milks, where we have a higher chance of overheating, in recipes where we have a lot of solid butters like coconut oil and beef tallow, and in recipes where we have fragrance oils and essential oils that tend to really accelerate trace. So let's now leave them aside and wait until they're both at around 29 to to 30 degrees Celsius. Our oils and coconut milk lye solution are almost cooled down to around 30 degrees Celsius. But before we do that, I would like to take a beaker. I put here a bit of distilled water, not a lot, just a bit. And I'm going to dissolve a bit of titanium dioxide inside, which will give an amazing white color to our soap. This is completely optional. It's just that I really like getting a very beautiful white color because soap itself is more beige. And now the most exciting time of soap making has arrived, which is mixing our oils and lye solution together and then pouring them into the mold. I am very excited for this. So as you can see, the coconut milk solution is very, very thick, and that's okay. We're gonna add all of it inside. There you go. So as you can see now, we have reached the so-called light trace, where basically the soap butter has reached a stage where it sticks on the stick blender. And this is the right time to add our, first of all, colorant, which is titanium dioxide, and also our phenomenal essential oil blend. The essential oil blend contains Lychea cubeba, which is a mild trace accelerator. So once we add it, we need to work slightly fast and then pour it into the mold. So if you spend too much time here, you might risk that your soap butter solidifies really, really fast. And I can see now that it's the right time to pour it into the mold. Let's go. Wow. Oh my. And now what I want to do is that I want to shake the mold so that the soap butter goes everywhere. And I'm gonna tap the mold. The reason I'm tapping the mold is to remove any trapped air bubbles. And if you look closely, you will see some trapped air bubbles coming up now. Now I want to use a membrane. And we are going to insulate it slightly. And be aware that there is coconut milk inside, so there is still a slight chance of overheating. So we don't want hard insulation. We just want a slight insulation here. So see you guys in 24 hours. I'm very looking forward to the result. By the way, if you want more recipes like that, from normal soap to dish soap to sensitive skin soap to shaving soap to shampoo, conditioner bars, hand creams and so on, I have an ebook that contains all of it. And this ebook teaches you not only to copy recipes, but it teaches you how to create and how to design your own recipes and how to think like a formulator. So 24 hours have gone by. The soap has been sitting in the mold all these hours. Now let's go ahead, remove it from the mold, cut it, and also talk about stamping. Let's go. Look how easy it is to remove it from the mold. So, there we go. Now let's talk about stamping. I have a metal stamp. So it has this wooden handle and this metal stamp right here with the logo. I've noticed that when I stamp directly on the soap, it usually oxidizes the oils and it leads to dreaded orange spots. So you can see, for example, for this soap right here, it led to dreaded orange spots and oxidation right where I stamped it. In order to troubleshoot that, I just use a plastic membrane to stamp it, and that basically solves the problem. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and it got to add some value to you. So see you guys next time.